Welcome everyone, this is Jacqueline Jax, and if you received this Coastal Breeze set in the mail, you are going to be so excited because we are going to paint a bunch of different kinds of palm trees, starting with this lovely Coastal Breeze scene. It is so perfect for this time of year. I want you to take this invitation to slow down, paint with intention, and let the brush become your breeze, your water, the tide, and the paper, a memory waiting to be made. Let's get out our kits and get to painting, because I think this is one of the most fun things you can do this summer. You know, if you think about the days that you've taken those beach walks, the palm trees swaying in the gentle breeze, casting the long shadows over the sun-bleached beach. I mean, there's so many beautiful, peaceful moments that come to mind when we paint. And this is definitely one of those that's perfectly arranged for the season. But don't only paint palm trees just now. Paint them whenever you feel the need, because those beautiful skies will definitely brighten your day. So I'm starting with the Deft Blue. I love, love, love this color so much. It is so pretty because it just makes such a beautiful sky with a lot of depth right off the bat, right? We can also add this with a flat brush, just very gently, to start our horizon line and our water line. Now, if you notice, I kind of go at an angle with my sky, and that gives me the clouds right away. So there's not much I have to do. You can always take a little tissue and wipe away some, or dab, and that will also give you more white space back. For the blue, I'm taking very concentrated levels of this highly pigmented watercolor with a wet brush, and I'm just gently adding it to dry paper. This really works out with the kind of paper that I sent you to do the demo on, because it's 100% cotton. If you are trying to do this on a paper that is not 100% cotton, it might give you a little trouble just because it doesn't absorb into the paper as well. It sits on top. So you might have to work a little bit with that and be a little, patient with yourself. I'm also taking the surf color, which is the green color, and adding that in. This is called dropping in color. It's just a way of mixing on paper while your page is still wet. Next, I'm taking the surf color and I'm going to start creating some of the areas where the palm trees will be. This is just some green grass, just placement for the palms, and just kind of like getting started so that I have a placeholder that already has some color on it. I like to do this step because it kind of just gives me a reference, and it also mixes in some colors that can kind of dry before I put the next layer on. Now I took the beach day and a wet brush, same brush, and I'm kind of mixing that into a little bit of a background where the palm tree is going to go, creating some sand and just kind of giving my space between the water and the palm tree a little more texture. I'm not using it heavily, I'm just using a damp brush to kind of like mix it down, and that's going to create the sand dunes where the palm tree will be. Very, very simple. This isn't something that you need to overthink here. Just little goes a long way. You can blend it right into the water line if you want a little more like light sandy. I like not doing it heavy here because I feel like it just looks better when you have areas of beach that are heavier and ones that are not, and then you can always drop in shadows later, But for me to capture this look, I like the texture. Otherwise you just get like a plane of white or of beach sand, and that just doesn't make a lot of sense because we're leading up to a palm tree, like a little island. So this kind of frames that. It gives me that like point of reference in the front and kind of draws the eye. Now I'm taking some areas where I'm going to be laying in my palm fronds and drying it off just quickly because we don't have a lot of time to let it dry. And watching paint dry is never really that fun. It's very impatient. Now, if you notice, the Beach Day watercolor is a very honey mix. It's very creamy. So it doesn't dry completely. So I put it in one of these little honey pots, and I tipped it over so that you can use the base of the honey pot as your mixing palette. If you like this idea, let me know, and I will certainly start doing it in more of the watercolor subscriptions. So as I mixed some of the colors together, You saw me adding some orange, and that is just to get a more neutral tone to my blues, greens, and my beach day. No matter what you mix on this palette, once you add the orange, you're going to get a level of neutral, and that is really fun to be able to do the tree base, to be able to do some, like if you wanted to put shadows on the sand, if you wanted to put some depth into your palm fronds, if you feel like they just didn't grab enough depth laying them over the sky color, which is why I put a little bit darker sky color where the palm fronds will be, because it will give us that shadow that we want right off and give us a color variation. That's also why I dropped in some color before I put the palm fronds in, because that additionally gives me a little more depth of shadow. So now I'm just kind of like taking a round brush and dotting in some of my greens and some of my neutrals, and just kind of shaping out the wistfulness of where I want those whispery palms to be. I find that this is a really important step because it gives me a reference for the palms, and it also allows me to make corrections if I feel like a frond is not going to go in the right direction, or it doesn't look wispy enough, right? If it doesn't look like it's blowing in the breeze, then we can always change it, because this is just a very, very light layer. I also like to draw with my watercolor. So that's this sketch and laying down these really light kind of like templates really makes a huge difference to me. Next, I'm taking a more green mix, and I'm starting to darken up some of the fronds that I definitely want in my painting. I'm giving them some shape and giving them some bend at this point, just so that I have a point of reference when I lay in the actual palm fronds. So now we're going to lay in the fronds. Now this is really easy. You just take a thin, this is a small piece of paper, so I'm using a smaller brush, and we're using the side of the brush. So I literally lay the point of the brush onto where the base of the leaf would go, and then I just drag it right down in a very, very quick motion, and then reload the brush. Depending on the thickness of the brush you use, you're going to get more or less paint. I prefer to have this step be more of a dry mix, because I like the look of kind of wet on some and then dry brushing on others. So you can see, especially when I take the yellow, I just kind of like dip it in and get a mix of colors on my brush, so that the orange, sorry, I meant to say orange, so that the orange is not too bright right off the bat. Now there will be areas on the palm frond where I will make the orange more bright, but this like kind of burnt orange look is a lot more natural, not as bright, and kind of gives us some built-in shadows, right? Now you also notice that I am putting some of the fronds over the tree base, and that's important because that's how things really look. If you just had the tree base leading right up to the center of the start of your palm, it would look kind of fake and almost like it wasn't full enough. So be careful that you do have layers that go over the base and go over each other without being too cluttered, and that's why we're using a smaller brush as well and doing that dry brush effect. Here again, I'm just taking the tip and showing you, we just simply do it very, very quick without a lot of thought process other than which direction we want this palm frond to go. Do we want it to be front facing? Do we want it to kind of go off over into the other? And if you notice, a lot of times I will mix between adding a frond where it's more wet and adding it where it's more dry. And that's going to give me a little variety, right? If everything was perfectly dry, nothing would mix together on paper. And me personally, it's watercolor. I love to see things mix a little bit on paper, because I feel like that just gives it that lovely, like spur of the moment, beautiful, throw caution to the wind and paint with random abundance, right? Like just don't worry about it. Make it more organic, make it more interesting to look at. Because if every frond to me looks perfectly formed, I feel like the eye reads it too quickly and it just doesn't become effective as a watercolor painting. I feel like some have to be overlapping with colors. So we're also taking the palm light, which is like a brilliant color for palm trees, right? Such a beautiful, versatile color. And I'm adding that in so that I have not just dark fronds, not just shadow fronds, not just orange or different layers of orange. I have this bright green that I can put on the top of the fronds or on some of the areas that aren't overlapping to make it look like the sun is shining through. That, I think, is the key to having a great palm tree. Not only can you add a little bit of color and think about when you look at a palm tree in the bright light or in the shadows, what colors are actually showing, because there are a lot of colors in palm trees. It's not just one color. It is many, many colors, even more colors than you see here. So you let the colors mix, you let the colors play, and you just enjoy painting your fronds in such a way that makes you feel like they're blowing in the breeze. And that is reckless abandonment right there. So now I'm mixing some more colors. I'm just going to be adding a mix of the blues, the greens. It's pretty random. Sometimes I add a little orange if I want it to be more of the base color, for the tree trunk, or if I want to add a shadow somewhere. If I don't want to add a shadow, then I take the orange out and I just do like the blues, the greens. If you add a little bit of the palm light, it's going to make the paint a little bit thicker and heavier because it's a little bit more opaque. If you stick with the deft blue, it's going to be more transparent. And if you add the surf color, it's going to be more transparent. The surf color almost can be considered more like a phthalo, but with more depth and dimension than just a plain phthalo blue. At this point in the watercolor, I am adding shadows and just a little more texture just to play. This is entirely up to you, this part. So if you feel like enough is enough, then go on to the next one and make another beautiful palm tree scenario. I love to just play, and keeping my fingers busy is really always a great thing when I'm painting. You see how those palm fronds look now? If you can look real close, they've got like those beautiful layers, and that little bit of bright green just really makes it pop. You can also, once this is dry, go back and add a little bit of the Tangerine Dream because it's really bright when I haven't dirtied up the watercolor, of course. In the waters and the beach and within the palms, I'm just kind of darkening some areas and just giving it a little more pop. This is a personal choice entirely. This is not something you need to do or make part of your tutorial. If you have reached a level of I love it, then leave it alone and back off, let it dry, and just enjoy what you've painted. I really, really think that you're going to paint many of these and enjoy them because it's really, really a fun tutorial to do, And sometimes this can be one of those tutorials that looks overwhelming or hard to do, but as you can tell, it's really quick and easy, and it's all about just layers and that reckless abandonment, not thinking too much and just moving kind of quickly, especially on the palm fronds. So before I mentioned that it's good to have palm fronds in front of the tree base, right? So remember, I always kind of like add that in. And if you see an area that just didn't turn out right, or you want it to add color to it, you can always dry it with a little cloth and go back in and add another layer. The pigment that you received in the monthly watercolor subscription is really high quality professional paint, and it is so potent. So a little goes a long way. Even though this is just a little sampler, you can paint, I would say, easily 10, 15, 20 paintings with it. It's really, really potent. So you don't need to overload your brush. You don't need to take a lot of paint and feel like you're not getting enough. A little goes a long way. And the thing is it dries just as nice, clean, clear, and bold as when you put it on wet. And that's something I personally like as an artist. All right, we're done. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Many more to come. If you haven't signed up for the monthly watercolor subscription, you can do that and receive paint at your doorstep anywhere in the world. From handmade in Canada here, jackswatercolor.com is where you sign up. I'm wishing you such a good painting day and a lovely summer, and I will catch you guys back here again soon.